Good morning. Thank you for joining us for another Whereoware webinar. My name is Aaron Lemley. I'm the Director of Customer Insights at Whereoware. Been with Whereoware for 6 years now. My first webinar, so hang in there with me. I'm super excited to be presenting with Marketing Analyst Anna Junker. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that you will be receiving a recording of the webinar tomorrow. If you have questions during the course of the webinar, please feel free to use the chat box and submit those. Hopefully, if we run on time, we'll have a little bit of time left over for questions at the end of the session. We do want to be respectful of your time, and presentation is currently pacing around 25 minutes. So if we don't get to your question, we can follow up with you directly as well. In the meantime, we encourage you to tweet with us using the hashtag #WowWebinar. And I think that's it. Let's go ahead and get started. Today's topic is how you can gain a competitive advantage by investing in your SEO efforts today. Definitely timely. If business has slowed or budgets might be tightening, SEO is always a good investment and one that definitely pays off in the long run. We're going to be giving you some practical tips and hopefully some actionable items you can get started with like today. So brief agenda, gonna level set on the definitions of SEO just so we're all starting from a solid foundation. Obviously a relevant topic, the current pandemic and COVID going on is impacting SEO, and we'll be sharing what you can interpret there. Finally, we'll be sharing some basics again in terms of actionable items, things that you wanna make sure you have in place right away, and sharing some tips on generating optimized content, and then finally actually measuring success in the environment for today. Thank you for finding Whereoware and obviously finding this webinar. Just a brief bit about us. Whereoware is a full service digital marketing agency based in the Washington, DC area. We provide an array of services in addition to SEO and pay-per-click services. We build websites, custom development, and strategic consulting as well. So thank you, and if you're a member of any of these organizations we work with, thank you for attending. Great, so let's kick off an SEO overview. So search engine optimization is the practice of gathering and garnering more organic traffic. And organic traffic is a critical channel for any successful marketing mix. Read recently that on an average, 54% of traffic to a website is organic traffic. Over 70,000 searches are performed every second. People are constantly using search engines to connect with other people, find new products, find thought leadership pieces, and obviously, ideally discovering your organization. So it's extremely important. I am assuming it's 11 o'clock Eastern right now. Many of you might have already performed a Google search today. So certainly something that's all around us and an important channel. Again, to level set on how organic results are surfaced in Google, quick and timely tip here, Mother's Day is coming up, and so I performed a quick Google search for Mother's Day gift ideas. Immediately upon searching, we're seeing sponsored or paid ads at the top, above the fold, and then just below that is the organic search results area. These areas, this area of the search results page is not purchasable, right? They had to earn this area, and they earned that through the practice of search engine optimization. And when we talk about SEO, it tends to feel a little mechanical, as if we're only optimizing for machines, but that's not exactly the case. SEO makes your website better for search engines, and it makes it better for the people who are performing these searches. Better content equals a better experience, equals higher conversion, for you. Also, another misconception is that maybe you're not a B2C organization, maybe you're a B2B organization or a service organization. In actuality, 70% of B2B researchers admit that they start their buying process with a generic search term and often performing multiple searches. So focusing on SEO efforts in optimizing organic traffic is an important practice regardless of your industry or vertical. Also, misconception is that you're only seeing, like text-based results, but honestly, Google surfaces organic content in a variety of ways. We've listed just a few here, but if we were to list them all, the slide would have been enormous. You would not have been able to read it. So we only kept it to a few here, but it's a good example of how Google is surfacing local results, optimized image results. The PAA section, or people also ask section, is returning results in the forms of questions and answers, which is helpful. And optimizing, Google My Business and optimizing the knowledge panel is also an important part of local search. So when we talk about SEO, we like to use the terms on-page, off-page, and technical SEO. On today's webinar, we'll be focusing on on-page, but to define these others, it's just important to keep in mind. Technical SEO is often where people get caught up on nomenclature or vocabulary. You hear things like robots, text files, or canonicals. You're like, what is this? You might get a little intimidated. We're not talking about technical SEO today because often it involves either budget or budget in the form of development resources to impact. And while it is important, it's not something you can run out and do right away. Similar with off-page. Off-page takes a lot of sweat equity to build up high quality backlinks and build your website authority. So while we have some techniques and strategies on that, and we'll guide you to resources on these two bubbles, not something we're diving into today. Today we're focusing on on-page SEO. And when we say on-page, you can think of that in terms of content, imagery, the keywords and keyword phrases that you're thinking about, and titles and meta description information. This kind of information can easily be updated within your content management system or CMS, and we're going to give you some highly repeatable and high quality frameworks to optimize that effort. Now, you might be thinking, do I actually have time to do this? If you're still on the fence on whether you should be investing in SEO or not, consider this. SEO is a long game, but is certainly an effort that pays off over time, and it's one of the few strategies that we can take on as marketers that actually gets more effective over time. You can think, often we talk about SEO and pay-per-click together. If pay-per-click is a faucet, something you turn off and on, and then you get a bill at the end of the month that you have to pay, SEO is a drop in a bucket that can act as a reservoir of high-quality leads, customer acquisition, and solid converting routine traffic for your business. So those two things complement each other, and you want to find a mix that's right for you, but it's certainly one that can pay off with compound interest over time. I hope that served as a good foundational discussion for you, and we're in a good place to kick it over to Anna Junker. Anna, do you want to talk about search behavior trends?
Sure. Thanks, Aaron. And as Aaron mentioned, optimizing SEO over time is really important. So it's not something that you can kind of just do once and be done. And this is in coordination with the fact that search behavior is always changing, and there are trends, especially we can see right now. So this kind of probably mimics your search behavior over the past few weeks and months. You know that your own search behavior has changed, and we're seeing that in traffic across this different sectors. This chart is just showing an essential industry or sector like food has seen an increase in their organic traffic, whereas an industry like travel has really seen the almost direct opposite impact, a really big negative impact on their traffic to their site. And why is that? That's because the search behaviors have been changing. And here's a tool that you can use. It's called Google Trends. This shows you interest over time. And right now we just pulled some examples of an essential and a non-essential search term compared over the past couple of years. So if you're in an industry, like an essential industry, like if you're searching for groceries in blue, you can see, a couple of years ago this time, it was pretty low, the interest in that category, whereas a category like swimsuits or a term like swimsuits had generally more popularity. Maybe people were getting ready to go on spring break, planning their vacations and travel. But now, currently, that has almost flip-flopped because the interest in an essential category like groceries or topic has really kind of shot up, and non-essential has remained kind of low because people do not need that right now in this time. So that's why it's really important to monitor that behavior in addition to optimizing your site. So what can you do now if search engines are the long game and you want to kind of understand these trends? Actually, last week, Google made an announcement that they're going to be making product listings free for all businesses. So if you're a business that sells products online, as Aaron kind of showed the Mother's Day listing, right now, in the past, Google had only offered those for paid results, but now to help retailers really get more exposure during this time when they're losing foot traffic to stores, they've offered up this listings to any business. So you can create a shopping feed and get your organic product listings out there in addition to your paid listings. So if you already have a paid feed set up, these will start to show up automatically. But if you don't, it's something to definitely look into and then think about how to implement in the future. And I think they rolled out as of end of April, so they're happening now. Google also has an update for their Google My Business, which is a local listing, as Aaron mentioned, kind of that off-page SEO element. If you haven't claimed your Google My Business listing yet, you should definitely do that. I saw a fact like 54% of businesses haven't claimed their Google My Business listing. Definitely claim it first if you haven't, but then if you have any updates specifically related to COVID-19, you can post those on your Google My Business page to be kind of pulled into search results and really help your customers understand how your business is responding right now. Thirdly, if you're making any changes to your website right now, if you're pausing your carts or adding any new content, creating new banners, anything that could potentially impact the usability of your site and how people are kind of completing those desired actions, make sure you're monitoring that, and whether that's through heat maps or working with your web developers and designers to understand how those changes are impacting. Just understand that, as Aaron said, it's not just the search results, but the experience on your site that impacts SEO. So keep an eye on that right now as well. Finally, monitoring your search queries. So you can do that if you have an on-site search, or you can look in your search console, as we'll talk about later, to see if people are searching for phrases around COVID-19 or coronavirus, to make sure that you have an answer for them on your site, whether it's in an FAQ page or a dedicated landing page, just somewhere to answer those questions to make sure you're resolving those queries. We had a webinar actually recently, a few weeks ago, that talked about all about B2B marketing during this time. So if you haven't watched that, that's also a great resource and kind of complements a lot of these recommendations. So that's what you can do right now. We're also talking about how to set you up for success in the future. My slide's just a little slow here. There we go. So SEO is a long-term game. So really what you want to do is master the basics. And as Aaron mentioned, those on-page elements that you can get to right now within whatever content management system you're using. So we're going to kind of cover a few of those. And a point to keep in mind is that we're not talking about your website as a whole. Google looks at individual pages, and we're optimizing pages individually. So think about that when you're kind of optimizing your site. As we saw in the search engine results page, you might hear SERPs thrown around. This is kind of what you'll see as a general text-based organic search result, and the elements. We have the URL, title, and description. So title tags are really important. Keywords here should be the most important at the front. So whatever you're optimizing for, make sure they show up first because it is a big ranking factor. Make sure that they are unique and you don't have any duplicates because it will be better to optimize for Google. There are some length recommendations as well. And those are mostly so that you show up fully in the search results. So a lot of tools will tell you if you're over or under. And you can find those at the top of your browser screen too. That's another place to look. The description is really helpful to cause the users to take action. So it's not necessarily a ranking factor, but you can see here it's important to include your keywords because they will be bolded in those results. And it just really motivates the user to understand what they're clicking through to. There are length suggestions here. Again, they vary, but if you want them to kind of fully show up, aim for that 155 characters in your description. Uh-oh, might have to go back. URL. So you'll see here, this isn't a traditional URL structure. Google in 2015, I think on mobile, and 2018 on desktop, started shifting to this breadcrumb style URL in the search results. So what it does is it kind of it helps the user understand where they're going to land on your site if they click on this search result. So it's really the most important to be really readable and scannable. And again, this is something you may not have the ability to change. So really don't get too caught up on it. You just want to make sure that the users will understand and they can trust where they're going to end if they click on this link. So action items, you want to know what you can do now. We have these basics. You should take your website, your URL, and throw it into a tool that will go through your site and pick up some of these basics. We list a few here that have free trials, or you can run for free for a limited number of pages, and this will help you pick up duplicate metas, duplicate titles, duplicate descriptions, missing titles, missing descriptions, missing image elements we'll talk about later, but these are definitely something you can do right now and really basic that you can make an impact to set you up for success later. Another piece for SEO that's really important is content. And if you ask Google, like, what kind of content should I be creating? They'll always say, create great content. And you're like, thanks, that's really helpful. I don't know what that is. Well, Google actually came out with like a 160 plus page document back in 2013 called the Google Search Quality Rater Guidelines. And within that document, they mention this idea of EAT when they reference what good quality content should be, meaning it should have expertise, authority, and trust. And so they look at this, especially if you're a business that people will be spending money on. They're buying products on your site. They're researching a service that will be investing in your company a lot. So they want to make sure they're guiding their users to relevant, trustworthy information. And it starts with keyword research, which the process we're not going to talk about today. We do have some resources at the end where you can kind of dig in and really get to know how to complete keyword research and find the right keywords for your business. But that is the core of understanding your audience and what they want to know, making sure you're the expert in that area and creating the right content. The next part is authority, which again, as Aaron mentioned, a lot of this is off page, so we're not going to talk too much about it, but making sure that you are seen in your industry as someone who has a lot of authority. So people are linking back to your site from trustworthy sites is even better if they're within your industry. Creating mentions in other resources that are relevant to your industry, getting shares, and branded search, people searching for you specifically could show that you are an authority in the space. An area where we we'll talk about improving is the trust on your site. Reviews, again, are kind of off page, but they're very important. You should definitely be having a review strategy to gain more reviews from relevant sites like Google, Facebook, Better Business Bureau. Google will look at that as an authority for you for trust. But on your site, you can make sure that you have a way for people to contact you, especially if you have customers who maybe have issues with orders, or customer service center is great. Make sure your policies are really clear, that people can understand how they would get a refund if they need to. Those small elements will all support the kind of overall health of your site and trust from Google. Same with HTTPS. Again, you can't implement that today, but definitely if you haven't moved over, that is a trust factor that's really big for Google. Click in here. All right, another thing you can do, mapping keywords to your customer journey. So this kind of starts with understanding and defining your customer journey. So I hope you have done that. And if you haven't, that's a great first step in the exercise. The next one, I don't want to say it's a full content audit of your site, because that can be really intimidating and really in-depth and technical. So the first part is to start a mini audit where you have a goal. And the goal here today would be to really find that content and map your keywords to the customer journey and understand and identify the content you have now. And then the next part would be, is it working? Does it need updated? Should you keep it, or is it outdated? Should you remove that? And finally, if you do that audit and look at it, is there anything that's missing? Are you missing a gap in your consideration phase? Do you not have enough content to help people consider if they should choose your business over another? Or, are you missing the whole awareness section? Are people not even finding you because you don't have any content about that? So this is a great way to kind of just identify what you have, what you need, and kind of build a plan for moving forward. Again, a content audit could be a whole nother webinar. And why I say this is because especially for B2B, as Aaron said, SEO is really important, and people don't really engage until they've done a number of searches. So if you are missing any parts of that journey, you're potentially missing out on a point to kind of bring awareness and engagement to your site later on. Again, so keywords, that keyword research, really important. Not going to talk about it today, but if you are reviewing and building new content, there are some baseline minimums that you want to check where you should include these keywords in your content. However, remember that Google's not just looking for those keywords in certain spaces. They're looking at the whole page of content and evaluating it on its own, and looking at the intent and the trustworthiness and everything else. So while it is great to cover these basics, and you can do this today, keep in mind that there is a bigger picture out there that Google's looking at. Other types of content that are really important, as Aaron mentioned, images show up in organic search results, and they're actually really popular. Video is also great. YouTube's the second largest search engine. People are searching YouTube all the time. I'm sure you've searched some YouTube videos in the past few weeks. If not for you, then for your kids. Definitely for images, what's big to consider is the size and quality of your images that you're using. We've seen really large images have a big impact on site speed. So make sure that you're optimizing them for the web. They are high quality, but they're not huge and slowing down your site. Another piece for images is that make sure they have a unique file name. So if you're uploading image 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Google doesn't know what that is, and it can't help you in the search results. If you tell it it's a Mother's Day gift idea vase, than .jpeg, then it knows kind of what's in that image. So it's definitely an indicator for Google. So make sure you're including helpful file names. And then another alt text is another piece of an image we're going to talk about here. If you're like, what's alt text? Also called an alt tag. It's basically the description for an image that a robot can read, or maybe someone with an assisted screen reader, so they can understand, if they can't see that image physically, what the image is. And it's really important to have these for every image. This will help you in the organic image search results. There's some restrictions here for the length and everything else, but just make sure you have it both, again, for robots, but really for people. If you have images on your site and screen readers can't read them, you're really not helping your whole audience. Great. So went through a lot, and like I said, a lot of these could be their own webinars on themselves, but I think it'll give you a lot to work on over these next kind of few weeks and months. Definitely start with that audit. We have a tool here you can use, or just a spreadsheet to get going. Once you audit your site, find those gaps, create new content, make sure it's really great content, something new and unique and not out there already. For your authority of your site, make sure you have clear ways to contact, you have a nice about page so people understand what your business is, and make sure you check your policies, especially if you're missing any, to really support those customers coming to your site. Get those images updated, and we didn't talk about this in depth, but I did mention the site speed. So there are a couple resources, Google PageSpeed Insights, Pingdom. You can put your URL in, it'll run a page by page kind of speed test and tell you if you have any speed issues. Again, you may not be able to address them right now, but it's just good to know for when you want to address those. Maybe you can address some of the images if you're downloading and uploading them, but definitely keep an eye on your page speed for SEO. Very important. So now that we've talked about all of this, we're going to go understand how you should be measuring success if you're working on all this SEO over the next few weeks and months.
Yes, thank you, Anna. So what's the point of doing anything if it's not going to have, a real positive result? And so we want to try to equip you with some ideas in the starting point for a solid measurement plan. Maybe you inherited a measurement plan or KPIs from, somebody who's doing your role before, or you maybe don't have a real clear plan, just things you check in on once a year. Obviously, if you want behavior to change, you have to actually track something, and creating a measurement plan is an easy way to do that. It doesn't have to be a huge lift. What's most important about creating a measurement plan is that it's tailored to your business, that the goals and key performance indicators, KPIs, are relevant to the channel that you're wanting to monitor or optimize for the channel that you're using. And especially during times of economic downturn, that they are realistic in taking into consideration the economic factors that might be at work here. I'm sure if you're looking year over year at the moment, it might be a difficult pill to swallow, right? But if you're setting consistent benchmarks and you're keeping your eye in the distance and tracking progress towards realistic goals, then you can communicate about them well and ideally have some positive results. So to get started with a measurement plan, it can be helpful to take a look at some useful examples and things that other people have done. One that we're recommending today is an ABO, or Acquisition Behavioral Outcome Model, as recommended by Avinash Kaushik in his blog Occam's Razor. He has several frameworks there, but this one is one that's pretty flexible and malleable to the businesses that you may be running today. You can really think of this in terms of how acquisition, how are people getting to your site? Behavior, what are they doing once they're on your site? And then outcome, are they actually converting? Are they reaching the conversion points that you are trying to optimize for? When we talk about organic search results, one of the key things that we're really optimizing for, and is the KPI for organic, is obviously click-through rates from search queries. And we're going to talk about how to find that KPI using tools. So as we're talking about measurement plans, first we create a plan. Part of that plan is defining key performance indicators. Obviously, the big other piece is data. You want to be basing your decisions on actual, accurate, and actionable data. So once you get that, one way to get valuable data and actually start to make some decisions is using a tool like Google Analytics. Obviously, most of us are probably familiar with Google Analytics. some of us at where we use other business intelligence platforms like Tableau, Domo, or Power BI to report back on, visualize, and communicate our progress towards goals. Whenever you're using any of those tools or you're thinking about data in general, it can be easy to go down a rabbit hole and have too many data points and almost feel paralyzed by it. So I think it's just important to focus on clearly defining those key performance indicators, making sure that when you're communicating around those KPIs, that is in a clear fashion and not in an overwhelming fashion. And obviously that whenever possible, the data that you're consuming and the insights you're gaining from looking at the data is actionable and that you're actually taking clear steps on that data. I had mentioned click-through rates from organic or search traffic. In this example, we have connected the Google Search Console with Google Analytics, which allows me to go to one place. Again, another free tool that we use to see how our keyword phrases are performing for us. So click-through rate is indicated here. We're also able to keep track of where we are ranking on the search engine results page in terms of average position. So definitely an important part of measuring and reporting back on organic gains. Post mini audit, start thinking about this. Finally, we have shared a number of tools and resources in this webinar, and want to make sure that we're equipping you with an easy way to find those things. So when we send out the presentation, these links will be available for you to kind of click and go ahead and get started. This is a sort of a curated list, and we'll also be citing our sources for some of the stats and things that we mentioned today. So now what? I mean, in general, I think that we hopefully have equipped you with a number of actionable items that you can get started on. In addition, if you feel like you are starting, but you're not quite sure where to start, or you've been working on improving organic or paid investments and you need some support, Whereoware does have a variety of packages tailored to businesses small and large. If you're interested in any of those SEO pay-per-click packages, you can email sales@whereoware.com. You also have my email, I think, here, so feel free to reach out and we'd be happy to kind of discuss the results of a recent audit or talk through some of your particular challenges in today's environment. We want to thank you, of course, for watching. We do have a couple questions, and I feel like we have 3 minutes. So Anna, should we try to take a question or two? What do you think?
Yeah, let's
Rapid
go for
fire?
it.
Okay. Let's see. So one we have is, how often should I change things like descriptions or titles in my organic content? Yeah, so one of the things that you do whenever you're considering making changes would be to look at the results of your crawl. What is Google saying for your average position, and has that position changed over time? If you notice that you have a particularly high important keyword that's performing well for you, but you see your position, say, slip in the rankings, maybe you were on the 5th page and now you're on the 10th page in a short period of time, then that can indicate to you that you may need to make some changes and rework some content, or maybe add additional content to bolster your performance around that keyword or phrase. I would say that you don't want to necessarily be doing that monthly, but certainly like every 2 to 3 months on a monthly basis, look for pages that are performing poorly, make those edits, and then next month move on to the next highest important keyword or phrase and check back on the one that you changed last month in 2 to 3 months from there. Anna, do you want to?
Yeah, I got a couple coming in here.
Oh, great.
Brad asked about, will audit tools like SEMrush highlight image alt tags that haven't been populated? And yes, that is something that most of those crawlers should be able to pick up on and tell you if your alt tags are missing. So definitely that's an easy one to check off, yes. What's another one? Kennedy asked about what the best tool is to use audit keywords and the customer journey. That can be anything from a basic Excel spreadsheet to a Google Sheet. There is a content analysis tool that we'll link to in the resources, but that can be like I said, these content audits can get really in depth. So just be prepared that you may want to boil down your goals for your audit before you get started. Like I said, maybe just keep it to, do I have content for every customer journey, and do I have those keywords? But you can use a content analysis tool. There's also a great free Google spreadsheet we'll link to from a company called Distilled. They've kind of built out a great audit template you could just use and get started with today.
Excellent.
Aaron, others.
Well, I would love to take on some of these additional questions, but we are at 11:30. I will say that I believe we have a webinar former member of the team, Emily Ann, did on customer journey and persona development, which I think might be relevant when addressing that portion of Mike's question too. So maybe we can get that shared. Really appreciate your time today, everyone, and your participation. It's made being up in the attic an interesting and rewarding experience today, so thank you. And obviously we look forward to following up with you. Appreciate your time. Take care.
Bye.
And good luck.